Hey there, folks. So there's probably thousands, millions of car stereo installation videos out there already. So this is not meant to be an all-encompassing, step-by-step how to do a car stereo installation. This is specifically as it pertains to the PT Cruiser, and more of a bird's eye view, a general view. Okay, I don't get into the entire installation from start to finish. This is more guidance for what you can watch out for and tips that you might take on as you install your own stereo. If by chance I happen to do another full installation of a stereo in a PT in the future, I can try and capture that on video, but as it stands, I did not do that. So in order to try and put all the pieces together, I just made a trip to the junkyard and was able to do some dash disassembly, some of the interior disassembly to show wiring routing, where the subwoofer could be in the back, and some just general tips and tricks, and then just a few clips of what I've done on my PT Cruiser to hopefully help you along as well. What I recommend mainly applies to the 2001 to 2005 PT Cruisers, the first, what you might call the first generation. When it gets to 2006 to 2010, there will be differences, and I'm not familiar with all of them because I haven't done this on a 2006 to 2010 PT Cruiser. Some of the differences, though, for example, are the rear speakers. Rather than being in the rear columns on the back of the car, they actually put them in the rear doors. The first generation, like you'll see here, there are no speakers in the rear doors. They're mounted behind you in the rear columns, kind of where the hatch is. So that's a big difference as far as where the speakers are located and the type of speakers as well. The subwoofer enclosure, the factory one that goes in the back driver's side, is very similar between the 2001 to 2005 and the 2006 to 2010. We'll just say Gen 1 and Gen 2. In Gen 2, the shape changed very slightly, but I have been able in the past, by finding one of these enclosures at a junkyard in a Gen 2 PT Cruiser, I took that subwoofer enclosure and installed it in a Gen 1 PT Cruiser, and that works fine. All it is an 8-inch subwoofer enclosure that fits the mold of the body behind that interior panel. So that works if you find that. Given how hard it is and rare it is to find the PT Cruisers these days with that subwoofer enclosure, it's even getting rare just to see PT Cruisers in the junkyard. I had to wait months before some showed up that I could go to disassemble some of the interior just to get some stereo shots. So best of luck finding them. If not, I don't think it would be that hard to create your own enclosure. In fact, as you'll see in the video for that subwoofer enclosure, you could use if yours came without one equipped, without a subwoofer, you could use what is currently installed or what initially installed, that storage bin. I think there's a way you could convert that to your subwoofer enclosure if you're creative and you're good with kind of molding plastic together or using a plastic welding kit. Or using it as a template for something that you build out of, say, wood, most likely wood, but whatever you're handy with. Maybe you're good at welding and you can build a metal enclosure, whatever works. But that'll give you a template by getting in there and breaking out, like I show in the video, breaking out that storage bin that's attached. Wiring. You'll see me show some of the wiring in the video from the PTs at the junkyard, but I wanted to speak to this because after checking on a 2001 PT Cruiser where I did the stereo install, the 2005 PT Cruiser that I took apart at the junkyard, and then my PT Cruiser, which is a 2003, and a 2004 PT Cruiser, which my brother had, and yeah, I was going to say that I might have used 2004 wiring in mine, but anyway, all this to say is that from what I can tell, the colors of the wires for the stereo and the speakers, I believe, are the same between 2001 to 2005. That being said, I've seen in a number of instances where wiring colors can be slightly different depending on what you're looking at. So, your mileage may vary. You may find some different colors, some different tracers or whatnot. But in general, and I'll have pictures of this in the video and visual reference as well, but it looks like the wiring that I discuss in the video, and I'll talk about right now, should be the same between 2001 to 2005. So in general, what you'll find, once you get in and you take out the factory deck and you have that big connector that goes to the stereo, there's a number of wires that go to that should give you all of like the power, the speaker connections that you need, everything right there in one place. And those colors, you have pink with a light blue tracer. That is constant battery plus feed. You would use that like for your clock power, or anything where you need just a constant feed of power, but usually that would be on your deck that you're installing what it calls clock power, because it needs the clock still to be running even with the car shut off. Orange is going to be your panel lamps. In other words, the lights on your stereo that when you turn on your headlights, you want that to also, or dim them, brighten or dim them. It'll do the same on your stereo deck. So the orange is the one that you would connect to whatever it is on your aftermarket deck. The red with the white tracer, that is your fused ignition switch output. So that'll go to whatever the color wire is on your deck for switched power. So that's when you put it into accessory or put it into run, and that actually turns on your deck. Okay. In the factory, that harness of clump of wires, there will be a violet with a yellow tracer. That's what's called the PCI bus. That's specific to the factory wiring. You probably will not need that in your aftermarket deck. It's a data link connector that goes to the deck. Now, I've never had an issue just taping that off, not using it. I have read in some cases, though, where if that's not connected to something, if it's not terminated, that people have had issues or engine warning lights come on. I've never experienced that, but if you do, you may need to look online and see what that is. But I think it just involves terminating that wire somewhere along the bus. I've never had to do that, so I won't try and go into detail there. Then you got your black wire, which is just ground. Black is pretty much always ground. Those are the main ones that you will worry about for power, grounding, and lights and the clock to your deck. Okay. Other than those, you get into your speaker wires. And here's the good thing. You can use the factory speaker wiring. You don't have to rerun all that. Don't worry about, getting gold plated or any sort of fancy wiring. It won't really make a difference in your sound quality. That's more going to come from the RCA cables that you use if you're going to use a power amp, a subwoofer power amp, or just a regular power amp for your speakers. For that, you want to get as high quality shielded RCA cables as you can, because that will make a difference in the quality of sound. But the speaker wires that go, that are already run in the vehicle, that go from that connector to your speakers. You don't have to rerun those. That saves you a whole lot of running wire and disassembling your car just to run those wires. Okay, so the colors. Again, this is for 2001 to 2005. That's what I'm sure about. I don't know if they changed with 2006 to 2010 in the speaker wire color. But let's start with the front, actually. The positive, this is for your left front door speaker. The positive is going to be a dark green. The negative is a brown with a dark blue tracer. If your PT also has one of the instrument panel speakers, the little tweeters that they put up in the dash itself, they don't all have that. Sometimes you'll see what looks like the grill for it, but you don't actually have a speaker up there. But if you do, then what they do is, what Chrysler did is kind of spliced or split that signal from that left front door, ran another set of wires up to the tweeter, and they'll usually have a capacitor or resistor of sorts. I forget what the term is for it, but basically cuts all the low frequency out so that the tweeter is doing nothing but the high frequencies, the treble frequencies, and it's not, getting blown because it's trying to do bass. But if you have that up there in then the tweeter speaker, if you're going to mess with that at all and want to replace it, the colors are dark green for positive. So that's straight over splice into the left front door speaker. It's still dark green. But instead of the brown with a dark blue for the negative, for the tweeter, they changed the color to a red with a brown tracer. If you follow those connections, though, you'll get to the they call it connector 200, but that's where the wiring from that would be wiring from the deck comes to another connector where it changes color to go to the tweeter. Okay, really quick again, left front door speaker, dark green is negative, brown with a dark blue tracer is, did I say negative? Dark green is positive. Sorry, brown with a dark blue tracer is negative. When you get to the tweeter, if you're looking up at the tweeter, dark green is a positive, red with a brown tracer is negative. For the right front door, you got violet, purple for positive, and dark blue with a red tracer for negative. For the right side's instrument panel tweeter up there, you still have a violet or purple for positive, but it is and see, here's where it gets a little weird. They kept the same color, dark blue with a red tracer for the tweeter as well. So same colors as in the door as in the dash. For the rear speakers, your left rear, you have a brown with a yellow tracer is left rear positive. Brown with a light blue tracer is left rear negative. Right rear speaker, you have a dark blue with a white tracer for positive and a dark blue with a black tracer for the negative. These colors are important just so, in case you don't know already, you want to make sure all the speakers have the proper positives and negatives connected to each of them, both at the deck and at the speaker. If you don't, and like you have your wires crossed and you just, have what should be positive and negative properly on one speaker, but then you switch it on another one, your speakers will be out of phase and they won't be pumping the sound, pulsing the sound in the same phase. They'll be out of phase with one another, and that's going to really mess up your sound quality. It will not sound good. You won't enjoy your speaker or your stereo as much. So make sure you pay attention to what is positive and what is negative. You can switch them, but that means you got to switch it all the way around in all of them. So just make sure what you have connected on the deck up front coincides, works properly with what you have at the speakers, okay? What is positive and negative at the deck needs to be positive and negative on the speakers, and make sure they all work in tandem. They're working together. That was a lot. Sorry for all the chatter and talk, but there you go. So in a 2005, we have purple and blue with a red tracer, if you can see those two wires. That's for the right front. Okay, when it comes to the wiring, it's for the 2001 to 2005, it's pretty much the same, if not identical. I've seen some variations in the wiring colors, but here's the nice thing. You got this factory connector with all of the stereo power, clock supplied power, switched power, all your speaker wires, they all come to this connector. So what you can do if you're installing an aftermarket deck is just get yourself a test light so you can identify which wires are switched versus constant. You'll want the constant power, which in my experience has been, see the orange wire? That is typically clock, the orange is the lights, the illumination, so that when you turn on the headlights, it triggers the lights on your stereo as well. The red wire with the white tracer is switched power. The pink, and that's actually pink with a blue tracer, if the light shows it right, that's constant power. That's power always on, so that would be your clock. And then you have black for ground, and a lot of speaker wires. And I think that covers it all, but that's pretty straightforward. And you have it all in this one connector. So this allows you to install a third-party deck, an aftermarket deck, very easily, and you can get an adapter that fits this opening and allows for a third-party deck. Okay, so that's how you get to the front door speakers and into the deck and the wiring. We're going to move on to the rear speakers and how you might install a subwoofer. All right, here's that storage container on the driver's side rear, underneath the speaker that's normally there. As you can see, it has the plastic welds all the way around it. You have to break those, being very careful, because as you can see, I cracked the interior molding, the plastic. You don't want to do that. You want to be more careful, but this gives you the idea. So what you're doing when you remove this enclosure here is making space for a subwoofer enclosure. And if you find the factory one, it's pretty much this same shape that you see here. But it has an 8-inch subwoofer that you can mount in it. And then you would have that opening there. And what the factory process is and what I did just myself buying the appropriate materials was did a speaker grill, did a mesh, speaker cover on the back side of this, so it looked nice on this side and it looked like, speaker grill. But then I had the subwoofer enclosure and an 8-inch subwoofer mounted. And what you want to do is basically bolt your enclosure to the wall here, and you can drill through anywhere on this. This is not the outer wall, so you can drill through and have a bolt that secures your enclosure there. And then you would just run your subwoofer speaker wires along the side and up to the enclosure. All right, looking at my PT, the Green Machine, just a few other pointers if you're going to go the route of third-party aftermarket stereo installation. So be prepared to remove the front seats if you're going to be running some extra wires. If you're just replacing a deck and using the speakers, you don't have to do all this. But if you're going to be doing power amps, running wires to the back for subs, then remove the front seats. It's very easy. There will be 4 15mm bolts, 2 you access from the front, 2 from the back, and maybe a couple connectors for like seat belts, heated seats, whatever. Those are going to be those right there. They're connected to the frame of the seat. But remove the front seats. It gives you way much more room to do all of your wiring and get in there. Once you've got the seats removed, you're going to want to remove the center console. It's really not that difficult. There are 2 Phillips head screws right there where the cup holders are in the front. 2 more Phillips head screws here at the back, right down in there. Once you've got those 4 removed, you can lift that out. This is after you've removed the seats, because they need to be out of the way for you to pull out the center console. What I will do, because the manual says to go in and loosen the parking brake and all this so that you can move it up enough out of the way to slide the console up and off. I will just yank that sucker back as far as I can, and that gives me enough of an ability to lift that center console up and off of that. You're going to want to be careful. There's a connector to a light that goes to your shift indicator here. You don't want to break that wire as you go, and the cigarette lighter or 12-volt AC connector that also has a wire that goes to it. So make sure you disconnect those before you really start moving it around or pull it off. You don't want to break those. Okay, let's talk about the power amps. As far as space, where you have room to fit things, I'm able to fit smaller ones, but Rockford Fosgate power amps. This is under the driver's seat, so I have a sub amp and then a regular power amp for the standard speakers. This lets me power the sub in the rear, like I described, you know, my installation of that. Here's what I did in mine. So that sub amp, the wires coming back, powers this 8-inch sub that's behind that panel. Now I wanted to have more subwoofer power and sound, so what will fit in the PT is a 10-inch underseat subwoofer like this. And you can see right there, it's a Rockville brand 10-inch SS10P is the model number. And that fits quite nicely underneath the passenger seat. And that really made a difference. It really improved the low end and the subwoofer sound. So I have both that going and the 8-inch in the back. And that's great. It sounds great, and I'm happy with it. And that pretty much covers the stereo system in the PT. Simply put, I mean, it's everybody's personal preference, the sound, the brand, all the things you want to install, but that gives you an idea of how to get to the places where to install them, and your options for size and you know, types of speakers. So when you're getting power, if you're running extra power amps for subwoofer or your speakers, and apologies, this probably could be cleaner, but anyway, this is to give you the idea. Like this red wire, I think that's about a 4 gauge wire. And you can see that comes to that junction right there. That's the fuse. And you want your fuse to be, and you can see where that wire comes around to the battery, no more than a foot from the battery connection. You want the fuse. And I have 2 fuses. There's actually a second one that I've wrapped in tape below that. And they all come up here to the battery, okay? That's because I have, let's see, looks like I have 3 of them. One of these will go to power amp for just the 4 speakers in the car, where the factory speakers go. One of them will go to the original subwoofer amp, which is under the driver's side, and then another one goes to the additional subwoofer under the passenger side. So that's why I have them all there. But they all have a fuse within a foot from the battery. I ran all of the power cables down. This is a real jumble mess here. I'm not even going to try and dig through that right now, but just so you're aware, all the stereo power wires go from the battery. They have their fuse out here in the engine compartment. Then they go through the firewall, and I'll show that on the inside. So what I normally do, given that I have an automatic transmission, is right here. There's normally, if you have a manual, there's a clutch pedal and this plate that you can just unbolt and remove, and it gives you a nice hole for passing wires through. And as you can see, all my power wires and a bunch of additional wiring that I've added pass through that hole. That red one goes over to the subwoofer power amp underneath the passenger side, and then the 2 blue ones here go to the power amps under the driver's side seat. Quick note about when you're running power versus audio. You want to separate the power from the audio so you don't have interference and a whine and just bad crackle static whine sounds coming through your stereo. And if you run your audio wires and power wires together or close to each other, it can cause that. So I've got my power wires running down underneath the I'm forgetting the technical name, but under the side, the outside under here. And you can see where I bring those wires up through the carpet there, and they go to the power amps, okay? The speaker wires, they're also coming up through the carpet there. That's where those RCA cables plug in there. Those actually get routed underneath the center console, and that's why you need to remove the seats to install your amplifiers, and also to be able to lift the console up so you can run your audio cables and whatnot through there. Now I think for the subwoofer that's under the passenger seat, because you have to run both your RCA. Actually, let me mention about that. So the power wire for the subwoofer under the passenger seat does have to run over here, of course, to get over to that power amp right there. The RCA cables, however, I actually ran across the center console. They go underneath and across over to the other side under the driver's seat, because this subwoofer amp here, this Rockford Frostgate, it's handy. It has both the line in ports, but then it has a through, so I can daisy chain, just a line signal over to another subwoofer amp if I want to, and that's what I did to bring the signal over to the passenger side. And there's that amp over there. That's just for the 4 regular speakers in the car.